On February 17th, which was Monday, we received information from our local school district that 31-year-old Elizabeth Moss, who was arrested last evening, was sending inappropriate messages on Facebook to students in her class. During the investigations, it was learned that she had sexually assaulted one of the students, and at this time, we're still interviewing witnesses and possible victims of this crime, and this investigation is ongoing. Our investigators yesterday executed a search warrant at Mrs. Moss's residence, and items were seized from that residence. And this time, we're going through those items as well as talking to other victims and witnesses.
You tell us exactly what the items were that were confiscated?
I'm not going to go into what items were confiscated. We just took pictures of inside the residence and things like that.
Were they items that belonged to the victims in this case, or something that could have belonged to a victim?
They were just items that were pertinent to this case. I can't go into those right now. We're still in the beginning stages of this investigation.
Can you talk a little bit about the messages that were on Facebook to the students, or what, kind of like the nature of them, or what exactly?
Yes, I can let Investigator Dillinger answer those questions.
The that a teacher would have with a student, not necessarily sexual in nature, but were normally have with a student outside of school. Those messages were with her and several of the possible witnesses and victims through Facebook, which was how the Ms. Moss initially made her contact with them outside of the school. Just inappropriate messages that you wouldn't normally have between a teacher and a student.
You said her initial contact with these students was through Facebook? Outside
of the school setting, yes, which is how it led us to this investigation. The school received a report, they investigated, and when they found that the contact was inappropriate through the Facebook messages, they contacted us. One of the victims had saved the messages from Ms. Moss and subsequently let the school access those messages, which is how the Sheriff's Office was brought into the investigation.
How frequent were those messages, and how long have they been going on for?
This investigation goes back almost a year, approximately April of last year.
Did it happen just kind of once, or has it continued over the year's time?
Exactly. The contact with the students has continued for that year. We're not sure. Like we said, the investigation is ongoing. Possible other witnesses and possibly other victims in this case. So we don't know the extent of victims or witnesses at this point. So far, since Monday, every day leads us to another possible victim or witness.
How many victims do we have so far?
So far, just the one victim of a sexual assault.
Okay, so help me. You just said every day since Monday there's been a new victim?
There's been possible leads to other victims and witnesses in the case. We've not completed in the investigations and the interviews with these new leads that came up, so we don't know if they're witnesses or victims, but new names have come up since Monday.
Are the victims former students of hers or in the same class from prior years, since it goes over a year, school years?
The contact has been with students that she taught. Mrs. Moss' occupation was a music teacher at Chestnut Oaks. She taught music and music history. She also directed an honors choir, so all of those students had contact with her through either the classroom or the choral setting.
And those students were limited to the middle school, or was that something where other schools, students from other schools were brought in for this?
As far as the investigation goes right now, we are still just at that one school.
Are the victims male or female or both, or can you give us any?
The one victim that we have identified for sure as a victim is a male child that was 13 years old at the time of the sexual assault.
Who exactly were the complainants? I know you can't give us any names, but were the complainants other teachers, were they students, were they?
All we know is that the school received an initial report somehow, and through their investigation, they deemed it necessary for the Sheriff's Office to be brought in.
And that the report, was the report from that student's parents or a third party was involved somehow?
The school, we have a school resource officer there at the school. The school did their investigation. They notified the resource officer there that we need to be brought in. She did the report based on the information from the school on who the victim and the suspect would be, based on the inappropriate messages, which led us to investigate the inappropriate messages, and then the discovery was made sometime after that a sexual assault had occurred.
Were these messages asking the children to come to her home?
I'd rather not get into the details of that, but the assault did occur at Mrs. Moss's residence.
What are the sexual acts or whatever that she's accused of doing? Is it contact, or what kind of relations is that?
The student was a male, and she performed oral sex on that male student.
Are the parents involved? And what I mean by that is, were they who notified the school and the school resource officer, or were they involved in transporting the student somehow to that teacher's home?
We have no parental involvement as far as them getting contact with giving the children contact with Ms. Moss. Not at this time. We have not found that.
How did the student, do you know how the student got to her home?
I'd rather not divulge that right now as part of this investigation as to that.
Has your investigation led to any activity happening on the campus?
As of right now, no.
What if somebody sees this story and realizes that they've had some kind of contact with this teacher that was inappropriate? What do they need to do?
They need to contact us here at the Sumter County Sheriff's Office. That number is 436-2000, and ask for the Criminal Investigation Special Victims Unit. And one of myself or my partners in the Special Victims Unit will assist them in following the necessary steps to get done what we need to.
How often does the sheriff's office deal with situations like this?
Quite often.
Yeah.
Not necessarily teacher, but quite often. It's a shame that, you know, we have crimes like this committed in our communities, but it does happen.
The fact that this is a person of trust, a teacher, educator, does that make this crime even more egregious?
Yes, it does, very. And, you know.
How so?
Well, you're talking about like a sexual predator, targeting children of a young age and luring them to her house to, you know, have sex or sexual acts with them. And, you know, we just can't, this is outrageous, and we have to get to the bottom of it. And hopefully it's no more victims, but we're still investigating. It's a possibility there might be more victims.
When was she arrested?
Last night.
Was last night. Has she gone to bond court yet?
No.
Okay.
Is there a hearing scheduled?
Yeah.
Not as of this time. We still have one pending charge contributing to the delinquency of a minor that we're going to be serving on Ms. Moss, and possibly pending the outcome of the investigation with these other names that have come up. Charges may still be forthcoming.
Has she talked to you and confessed to this crime, or is she lawyered up?
She has not chosen to make any statements at this time on the advisement of her attorney.
Who was her attorney?
This is the Parham Law Firm out of Florence, South Carolina.
Can you spell that for us, please?
I believe it's Parham.
Does she have a particular attorney that you know of?
I cannot think of her first name right at this moment. I know it's the Parham Law Firm.
She was new to the school. Do you know, were there problems at other districts, or has this ever occurred before with her?
We are investigating that at this time.
Yeah, we don't have any information at this time, but we're investigating it.
Well, from what I understand, she was hired back in January 6th. Now, if there is a history of her, wouldn't the school have done like some kind of background check on her?
I'm sure they would, but you'd have to talk to the school district on their policies and procedures on that.
Mm-hmm.
She has children of her own. I mean, what's the situation? I mean, do you get family services involved, or when something like this happens?
We don't have any reason to investigate Mrs. Moss's home life at this time. She is married to another school district employee. She does have children in the home, and he has not given us any indication that any other investigation needs to be deemed out of the residence as far as that is concerned.
Have you spoken with her children?
No, I have not had access to her children.
Is there a concern that this behavior might have been happening outside of her school life?
Not at this time. Like I said, we did have contact with her spouse. He has not indicated anything of that nature as being a concern for him. We can't say that, rule that out as of right now. This investigation is still so early, and we're just taking it as it goes along.
This, can you talk to me about the arrest, where that happened last night, and what she was like when she was presented with these charges?
Ms. Moss was accompanied by her attorney, Ms. Parham. She turned herself here into the sheriff's office around between 6 and 6:30 last night, here at the Sumter County Sheriff's Office. She was given Miranda. She invoked her rights to remain silent. She was subsequently transported to the Sumter Lee Regional Detention Center and booked in.
And at this time, we're still following up on a lot of leads, and this investigation will be continued for some time.
Do you anticipate there being more victims coming forth after the word gets out a little bit and maybe get some more charges against her?
That's a good possibility that could happen, and once we get the word out, if others were involved or others were targeted, then we need to know those names, and we hope they will come forward.
How the additional leads and potential victims that you've mentioned that have come up every day since Monday, how are those students, first are they students, and how have they been coming to you? Contacted you, the school resource officer, how's that work?
They have been coming from the witnesses that are victims that we've interviewed, and a name would be given. We would then contact SRO to receive the parent contact information. These are juveniles, so we don't contact them directly. We make contact with the parents and make arrangements for them to come up and be interviewed.
Did you say how many of those you're still working on, I guess, trying to set up interviews with?
At this time, at the top of my head, I believe I have 4 pending interviews with children. They're either possible victims or possible witness. The students have been very forthcoming that we've interviewed so far in giving us the necessary information that we need to go forward. They realize the seriousness of the crime, and they've been cooperating along with their parents so far very well. We've just been trying to work with the parents to make ourselves available to their schedule to bring their children up to be interviewed.
It's taken kind of a year for this to come forward. Had she, threatened the students at all, like not to say something, or?
We really don't want to get into the investigation at this time. We still have a lot of follow-up work to do. We're prepared, if more arrests come forward or happen, then we'll be glad to discuss that information at that time.
May I get your name?
Senior Investigator Darlene Dillinger.
D-A-R-L-E-N-E?
Yes, sir. I just want to add that this is one of the first female perpetrator cases that the Sheriff's Office has worked, especially our Special Victims Unit. It is a little enlightening to see this classic predator behavior in this case, and we are looking forward to working it at the best of our ability and making sure that the victims get justice. So far in this investigation, it's been almost textbook, the behavior of Mrs. Moss with the relationship with the students as far as the predator behavior. So we're looking forward to assisting anyone that may come forward and have any information with this to make sure that we bring justice to these victims.
Can you describe that classic predator behavior? What is that?
It is called grooming, the offering of gifts, the overly concerned about the student's well-being, behavior, a student's lifestyle, almost as if they take on a childlike demeanor themselves to almost lure the children in to themselves. And we're talking about 13, 14-year-old children whose self-esteem is probably low. They have issues. They're going through hormonal changes at that time, particularly in middle school. So that behavior that the students exhibit was a target for predator behavior.
I know you can get into details about whether she threatened him or not to tell, but is that normal in a situation like this?
It's not unusual.
How long, and I know she's a new hire, and how long had she been associated with this student in this context?
My understanding is that Ms. Moss had been at Chestnut Oaks approximately a year and a half, I believe, at that school as a teacher. So the assault occurred sometime last year between March and April, so I believe she started their last school term into this school term. So from my understanding from the district, she'd been an employee there at that particular school for about a year and a half.
And so far, do you believe the grooming process you've mentioned started at the beginning of her employment, or?
As far as this investigation goes right now, yes, it did.
Talk about the district's response. I mean, obviously they notified you through proper channels and et cetera. Were they surprised, obviously, when they heard about this? It's been a long investigation. I mean, there could be more victims out there. Talk about, you know, how do you protect children when you know there's a possible predator within the school?
Yeah, they've been real helpful. The district superintendent and the principals have been really helpful in assisting us, calling us right off the bat, and they've always been real helpful in any kind of case that we have within the schools.
What is that message for parents then? You know, how do you talk to your kids about this?
Just be honest and truthful with them, and when they tell you something, believe them. Talk to your school district employees, your principals, your guidance counselors. We have SROs in school. We are here available at the sheriff's office. Just pay attention. Check their Facebook pages, their messages, see who they're talking to, where they're going. Monitor their behavior. When things are going on that you're not comfortable with, talk to your child about them. And if they absolutely tell you something, you need to absolutely believe it.
Have you exercised, I know a lot of the communication up on Facebook, other forms of either social media or things like text messages? Have you been able to search those venues?
Not as of this time. The only social media we are aware of that was used in this case is Facebook so far. The investigation hasn't uncovered anything else, and Facebook has been served a legal process to assist in this case, and they have been very cooperative up to this point.
Were photos or videos involved in this case?
Not as at this time.
Does the sheriff's office occasionally spread this message out to students in schools?
Absolutely. The sheriff's office is a member of the South Carolina Attorney General's ICAC task force, the Internet Crimes Against Children task force. I am the task force officer. I am available to go out to do internet safety and internet crime talks in the communities, and have done so for the last 4 years as a member of the task force.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Do you have her date of birth? Sorry, I was trying to check the press release to make sure it wasn't.
We'll get a copy of the incident report.
11/18/82.